What happens when one of Hollywood's most respected voices sits down for what should be a simple interview, only to face a host who seems more interested in picking a fight than having a conversation? In just 35 seconds of one particular exchange, everything fell apart. The camera kept rolling. The tension became unbearable, and what followed was one of the most shocking exits in talk show history. Morgan Freeman walked onto that set like he had done 1,000 times before. Calm, collected, that familiar voice that audiences around the world had come to trust. He settled into the guest chair across from Piers Morgan, ready for what he thought would be a standard promotional interview. Maybe talk about his latest project. Share a few stories from his legendary career. Connect with the audience watching at home. But Piers Morgan had other plans. Right from the start, something felt off. The usual pleasantries were rushed. The smile on the host's face seemed forced. There was an edge to his tone that Freeman picked up on immediately. Still, Freeman maintained his composure. He had dealt with tough interviewers before. He knew how to handle himself. Piers leaned forward in his chair, that smirk playing at the corners of his mouth, the one that said he thought he was the smartest person in the room. He started with a question that seemed innocent enough on the surface. "So, Morgan," Piers began, his voice dripping with something that wasn't quite respect. "You have had quite the career, decades in Hollywood. But let me ask you something. Do you ever wonder if you have just been lucky?" Freeman's eyebrows raised slightly. Lucky. After all those years of training, all those roles, all that work. He kept his voice steady. "Luck is what happens when preparation meets opportunity," Freeman replied. "I have worked very hard to get where I am." Piers waved his hand dismissively. Actually waved it, like Freeman's response was nothing more than a practiced line he had heard before. Yes, we have all heard that before," Piers said, that condescending tone creeping in stronger now. "But surely you must admit that being in the right place at the right time played a massive role. I mean, there are plenty of talented actors who never make it." Freeman shifted in his seat. Not uncomfortably, but noticeably. The audience could feel something building. "Of course timing matters," Freeman said, his voice still measured. "But to reduce anyone's career to just luck dismisses the countless hours of work that go into this craft." Piers laughed. Not a genuine laugh. One of those laughs that made it clear he disagreed and wanted everyone to know it. "Come on now," Piers said, leaning back with his arms crossed. "You are telling me that you worked harder than every other actor trying to make it? That seems a bit arrogant, does it not?" The word hung in the air. Arrogant. Freeman's jaw tightened just slightly. Anyone watching closely could see it. This was not a conversation anymore. This was something else entirely. "I am saying that I put in the work," Freeman responded, his tone cooling. "Just like many others do. I am not claiming to be special in that regard. But I am also not going to sit here and pretend that my success was handed to me." Piers uncrossed his arms and leaned forward again, getting closer, invading space. The kind of move designed to make a guest uncomfortable. "But it was handed to you in many ways, was it not?" Piers pressed. "You fit a certain image, a certain type Hollywood was looking for at a certain time. You cannot deny that played a role." Freeman's eyes narrowed. The viewers at home could sense where this was going. The studio audience sat in uncomfortable silence. "What exactly are you implying?" Freeman asked. His voice was quiet, dangerously quiet. Piers shrugged, playing innocent, but his words were anything but. "I am not implying anything," Piers said. "I am simply stating facts. The film industry has quotas, diversity requirements. You benefited from that. Nothing wrong with acknowledging it." The air went out of the room. Freeman sat perfectly still. Those decades of experience, that incredible self-control, were the only things keeping him in that chair. "Let me be very clear," Freeman said slowly, every word deliberate. "I earned every role I ever got. Not because of requirements, not because of quotas, because I was the best person for the job. Piers laughed again, that same dismissive laugh. The best person for the job, he repeated mockingly. That is what everyone says, is it not? But we both know how the industry really works. Come on, Morgan. You are a smart man. You know that your background, your appearance, it opened doors that might not have opened otherwise. Freeman's hands gripped the armrests of his chair, his knuckles visible even under the studio lights. You have absolutely no idea what you are talking about, Freeman said, the temperature in his voice dropping further. You sit here in your comfortable chair, in your expensive suit, and you have the nerve to tell me how I got my career. You? Piers held up his hands in mock surrender. I am just asking questions, he said. That is what journalists do. We ask the uncomfortable questions that others are afraid to ask. No, Freeman cut him off sharply. What you are doing is disrespecting me on your own show. There is a difference between asking tough questions and being insulting. The host's face changed then. The fake friendly demeanor dropped. Now he looked annoyed, like Freeman was the one being unreasonable. Insulting, Piers said, his voice rising. I think you are being a bit sensitive here. I am trying to have an honest conversation about how Hollywood works, and you are getting defensive. Defensive, Freeman repeated. You basically just told me that my entire career is based on filling a quota, and you expect me not to be offended. Piers rolled. His eyes. Actually rolled his eyes on camera. This is exactly the problem with people today, Piers said, addressing the camera now instead of his guest. You cannot have honest discussions anymore without someone playing the victim card. Freeman stood up. Not quickly, not in a rush, but with purpose. The kind of movement that made everyone in the studio freeze. Victim card, Freeman said, his voice low and controlled, but filled with barely restrained anger. You invite me here. You attack my integrity. You dismiss my life's work. And when I defend myself, I am playing the victim? Piers stood up too, trying to match Freeman's energy, but coming across as petulant instead. I invited you here for an interview, Piers shot back, not to have smoke blown at me about how perfect your career has been. I was trying to have a real conversation. Real conversation, Freeman said, shaking his head. You do not want a real conversation. You want to provoke people. You want to create controversy so people will talk about your show. Well, congratulations. You got what you wanted. The Oscar winner began removing his microphone, his hands steady despite the obvious anger coursing through him. The studio crew did not know what to do. The cameras kept rolling. The audience sat in stunned silence. Oh, so you are just going to leave, Piers said, that entitled tone coming through loud and clear now. Very professional, Morgan. Really showing your class here. Freeman paused, looked directly at the host, and spoke with a clarity that cut through everything. My class, Freeman said, you spend this entire interview trying to tear me down, suggesting that everything I have accomplished is not really mine, that I took shortcuts, that I benefited from some system instead of my talent and hard work. And you want to talk about my class? Piers crossed his arms again, defensive now. I was asking legitimate questions about systemic advantages in Hollywood, he said. If you cannot handle that discussion, maybe you should not be doing interviews. The condescension in that statement was breathtaking. Freeman actually smiled. Not a happy smile. The kind of smile that said he was done. Completely done. Maybe I should not be doing interviews, Freeman agreed. At least not with people like you. People who hide behind the label of journalist while actually just being provocateurs, looking for their next viral moment. Piers's face reddened. His voice got louder. Provocateur? He nearly shouted. I have interviewed prime ministers, presidents, the biggest names in the world, and they did not run away when things got slightly challenging. Slightly challenging, Freeman repeated quietly. Is that what you call this? You insult me. You diminish my career. You make suggestions about how I only succeeded because of my race. And that is slightly challenging? The host threw his hands up. I never said anything about your race, Piers protested. You are putting words in my mouth. Freeman tilted his head. That iconic look that had commanded screens for decades now focused entirely on this one flustered host. You did not have to say it directly, Freeman said. We both know exactly what you were implying with your talk about quotas and diversity requirements and fitting certain images. Do not insult my intelligence by pretending otherwise. Piers pointed his finger at Freeman. Actually pointed at him like he was scolding a child. You are twisting my words, he said. I was talking about industry practices, not making it personal. You are the one who made it about you. Freeman finished removing his microphone and handed it to a nearby crew member who looked absolutely terrified to be part of this moment. I made it about me, Freeman said, his voice still controlled, but the fury beneath it undeniable. You asked me here. You brought me on your show. You directed every single one of those questions at me personally. And now you are upset that I took them personally? The studio director was making frantic hand gestures from behind the cameras, trying to signal something, trying to regain control. But this train had left the station. Piers looked directly into the camera, playing to his audience now. Ladies and gentlemen, he said in that theatrical way of his, this is what happens when you dare to ask real questions. People cannot handle the truth anymore. Freeman laughed. A genuine laugh this time, but there was no humor in it. The truth, he said, you would not know the truth if it sat in the chair across from you and spoke to you for 20 minutes, which is exactly what just happened. The host spun back to face him. So enlighten me then, Piers challenged. Tell me the truth. Tell me that Hollywood does not have diversity initiatives. Tell me that those initiatives did not help your career in any way. Freeman took a step toward the host, not threatening, but firm. Hollywood has had diversity initiatives, Freeman said, because for decades, for generations, people who looked like me were shut out entirely. Those initiatives exist to correct historic injustices. They exist because the playing field was never level to begin with. And even with those initiatives, I still had to be twice as good to get half as far. So do not stand there and tell me I had some advantage. Piers scoffed. Actually scoffed. Twice as good to get half as far, he mocked. These talking points are getting old, Morgan. We live in a different world now. Do we? Freeman challenged. Because you just spent this entire interview trying to convince me and everyone watching that my success is not legitimate. That sounds like the same old world to me. The host's face contorted. He was losing control of his own show, and he knew it. Your success is legitimate, Piers said through what looked like gritted teeth. I never said it was not. I was simply trying to have a nuanced discussion about how success happens in Hollywood. Nuanced, Freeman said, shaking his head. There was nothing nuanced about what you said. You were clear. You were direct. And you were disrespectful. Own it. Piers took a step back, regrouping, changing tactics. Fine, he said. If I offended you, I apologize. Can we continue the interview now? Freeman stared at him. A long, hard stare that seemed to go on forever. If you offended me, Freeman repeated. Not, I apologize for offending you. Not, I was out of line. If. That tells me everything I need to know about whether you actually understand what you did here. The host spread his arms wide. What do you want from me? Piers asked, exasperation clear in his voice. I am trying to apologize. No, Freeman corrected. You are trying to get me to sit back down so you can save your show. There is a difference. Piers's jaw clenched. His professional mask was slipping more with every passing second. My show does not need saving, he said defensively. My show is doing perfectly fine. Freeman nodded slowly. "Then you will not miss me leaving," he said simply. He turned toward the exit, the cameras following his every move. The audience still frozen. Some looked shocked. Some looked like they agreed with Freeman. Some looked confused about what they just witnessed. Piers called after him, his voice cracking slightly. "You are really going to walk out?" he said. "You are going to let a simple disagreement end like this?" Freeman stopped, turned back one more time, and delivered his final words to the host. "This was not a simple disagreement," he said. "This was you attacking my character, my work, my integrity. You wanted to create a moment. You wanted controversy. Well, you got it, but not the way you planned, because I am not going to sit here and be disrespected for your entertainment or your ratings." Piers laughed, but it sounded hollow now. "Disrespected," he said. "You celebrities are all the same. You want everyone to worship you. And the moment someone challenges you, you cry disrespect." Freeman's expression did not change. He had made his decision, and nothing the host said now would change it. "Goodbye, Piers," Freeman said. And then he walked. Not stormed. Not rushed. He walked with the same dignity he had carried into that studio. Past the cameras, past the crew, past the stunned audience members, the sound of his footsteps echoing in the sudden silence. Piers stood there, alone now, the camera still on him, and for just a moment he looked lost. Like he had not expected this. Like he thought Freeman would eventually back down, would eventually play along. Then the professional mask came back. He turned to the camera with that familiar smirk. "Well," he said to the viewers, "that was dramatic, but this is what happens when you ask tough questions. Some people can handle it, others cannot." But his words felt empty. The studio felt empty, because everyone watching knew what had really happened. They had seen it unfold in real time. A respected actor had come for an interview. A host had decided to provoke instead of converse. And when called out on it, that host had doubled down, had blamed his guest, had played the victim himself while accusing the actual victim of doing exactly that. The cameras caught everything. The subtle insults disguised as questions, the dismissive gestures, the condescending tone, the refusal to take responsibility. All of it. Freeman had given the host every chance to course correct, had pointed out what was happening, had expressed his concerns clearly. And each time, Piers had escalated instead of listening. The microphone Freeman had removed sat on the small table between where the two chairs faced each other, a physical reminder of the conversation that had just imploded. The crew members looked at each other nervously. The producers were probably having heart attacks behind the scenes. Piers tried to continue, tried to move to his next segment. But the energy had shifted. The audience could feel it. The viewers at home could feel it. Something significant had just happened. Not just a celebrity walking off a show, but a moment where someone refused to accept being treated poorly